All right. Um, hello. Welcome. Welcome to our first ever UDNF live event. My name is Sarah Marshall, and we have turned the chat function on today, and we would love to hear from you. So please tell us your name, where you're from, and anything else you'd like to share about yourselves. As a way of introduction, I am the mother of a UDN participant who received a partial diagnosis in 2021. My work with the UDNF includes both patient and community engagement with the idea that building community is central to my role. To that end, we will be hosting regularly scheduled live events that both build and educate the undiagnosed community. We are building our live event schedule for 2024, and we want to know what topics grab your interest most. So please feel free to put your ideas in the chat or email me at Sarah, S-A-R-A-H, @udnf.org. Our next live event will be February 6th at 12 Eastern Daylight Time. And you should be able to, I think it's going up in the chat right now, you should be able to click on the link and register for it now, even before we've decided on the topic. And to that end, we've created a poll with 3 topics that we're considering for February 6th, and we would love to hear from you in the poll what your top choice is. So the first choice is mapping the UDN journey, understanding the diagnostic possibilities as a UDN participant. Number 2 is beginning to understand adolescent transition to adult care. And the third one is patient navigation at the UDNF, meet the navigators and familiarize resources. So let us know what your top choice is, and we want to speak to what it is you want to hear about. So more to come on what that February 6th event will be. Today, though, you will hear from UDN participants Olivia Kite and Kristen Cisco. Michelle Herndon is our new Director of Patient Navigation, and then from Amy Gray, the Undiagnosed Diseases Network Foundation CEO, about the UDNF and what lies ahead in 2024 for patients, families, and research. So I want to start by saying, for so long, the undiagnosed have not had a home. We have not had a place where we feel like we belong. And here at the UDNF, we really aim to change that by creating spaces both online and in person for all those that are undiagnosed, ultra rare, or have experienced a diagnostic odyssey of their own. We want to create open and safe spaces that reflect our values of compassion, empathy, and respect. To that end, we ask that your comments and responses be kind and supportive. Also keep in mind that many of us are still looking for answers and remain on a diagnostic odyssey. And because of our own experiences, we all have ideas and resources to share, which is wonderful. And we want that because we want people to feel like they are part of a community. But also keep in mind that all medical decisions made should be made in consultation with your physician, and that any ideas, resources, or suggestions should not replace medical advice from qualified medical personnel. So with that, I want to welcome our patient guests, Olivia Kite and Kristen Cisco. Olivia has been a UDN participant since 2014 at the Stanford site, and Kristen's son, Coop, has been the UDN participant since 2019 at the Duke site. So thank you so much for joining us, Kristen and Olivia.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Sorry, I'm looking at my screen and it's, so I just want to make sure that Kristen and Olivia are on the screen.
Yeah.
And great. So let's just start out first, Olivia, in a few sentences. Tell us kind of about your diagnostic odyssey, the types of doctors you've seen, and over how many years you have been on your odyssey, because I know you're still undiagnosed, correct?
Yeah, that's correct. At 29 years old, I'm still undiagnosed, and that's how long the journey's been going on since before I was born. So my parents knew there was something up when they had amniocentesis done in the 90s, which is really rare for that time, and also for England. I was born in England, so those two factors definitely made it quite a rarity. But anyway, they knew something was up. But basically, I was still born. I was born at 2 months early, sorry, and presented with a connective tissue type disorder of unknown origin. Obviously, that's why I'm still here, undiagnosed 29, and it just affects all of my joints and my muscles to be really tight. So that's the main thing that still affects me at 29 years old. That, in a nutshell, brought me to Stanford in Palo Alto in California. And as for doctors, I've seen every type of specialist under the sun, pulmonary, cardiology, GI, endocrinology, every other specialist since I was 4 and under. So yeah, Stanford's been my home since then. But yeah, it's been a 29-year journey.
Wow, that's incredible. And I know for so many of us, you know, you don't realize you're undiagnosed until you get to some certain point. And so, Kristen, what about, I know your son Coop is 11, right? And so at what point did you realize he was undiagnosed? How long has your odyssey been? And
So his symptoms started pretty much right after I brought him home. He had some high fevers that led into some other symptoms he had with the lymph nodes, and that's how we got all the different specialists involved. By trade, I'm a pediatric nurse, happened to be working in the facility with the doctors that were caring for him. So in my gut as a mom, I knew early on that, hey, he was going to be a challenge and probably undiagnosed. But like I said, working beside, I feel like my voice was kind of silenced because I didn't want to be labeled as Munchausen's or one of those parents that said there was something wrong, but there wasn't, because I didn't show up and work beside these professionals every day. So early on, I knew, but I think when it really sat in was when the care coordination team at that hospital sat down and said, hey, you're not crazy. There is something going on. The lab work shows this. Let's get you connected to apply for the UDN.
And so how you talked about being worried about, you know, how providers would react to you. How was it, you know, being that he's 11, how was that kind of for friends and family recognizing or, you know, understanding what does that mean he's undiagnosed? How do they not know? What was that experience for you?
I'd say half and half. In the beginning, very supportive, very worried, kind of like we were, wanting to know answers and what this journey and odyssey was going to entitle. But on the other half, I have a lot of medical family. So that makes it challenging. When we're in the medical field, this is what your symptoms are, this is your diagnosis, this is how you treat it. So as we went down the odyssey and did not get an actual diagnosis, it was like, well, then what's wrong? And I felt like that's when a lot of the support dropped off, and I felt alone again.
And what about you, Olivia? How was being, I mean, you've been undiagnosed for so long. Tell us about what that's been like for you, and then, you know, how that's been just living your life in your family and in your friend group.
Yeah, no, very good question. I feel like the oddball because honestly, from my memory, family and friends weren't asking us all the time, fortunately, what's wrong, what's the diagnosis. I mean, I can't speak for my parents from before my memories before 4 or 3, but I know that for me it was just kind of how it was, and it was, we weren't searching for a diagnosis at the time that I know of, and we were just kind of living with it, and some pretty intense moments. So it's just moments of keeping me alive, keeping me fed, keeping me breathing. So as long as I was stable, we were kind of just happy in that sense. And as for friends and family, as a kid, you just say that's how I was born, and kids usually accept that. Other kids usually accept that, and our friends and family did. As long as I was happy and relatively healthy, then they were okay. So I feel kind of thankful, very, very thankful and grateful in that sense, because I know other people's journeys are different, but yeah, yeah, they didn't ask too much that I remember, which is odd, I guess, but that's
Yeah.
my memory.
Have there been a lot of, I hear you talked about, being able to breathe or, like kind of making sure you're stable. Has it been up and down the entire 29 years, or how has the journey itself been?
I think the worst of it was pre early childhood, maybe 5 or 6 and under. Again, keeping me breathing, having moments of not breathing, not being able to eat due to just the connective tissue part of it all. So those were pretty intense for my parents, not knowing what was going to happen next. That kind of plays into the whole undiagnosed thing. It would have been nice to just have a diagnosis to know what to expect and prepare, and maybe a treatment wise, but not for the sake of having a diagnosis, just for the help of it, just to have a direction to go to, because they were flying blind, I should say. And I would say early childhood in a nutshell, and teenagehood quite stable for me. Still, of course, some challenges as well, if we could, I could go into, but I won't. But I think another big kind of roller coaster jump was I had an unexpected stroke at 21 years old. And so that kind of threw a wrench in things. And that again goes with, we didn't know that was going to happen. That was so unexpected. It might have, if we had a diagnosis, we might have known that was going to happen, or that was a risk, or that was a potential. But again, so yeah, it's a roller coaster, this undiagnosed journey, as you guys know. So yeah.
Yeah. And I didn't prep either one of you with this question, but just that not knowing piece. You talked a little bit about friends and family, but how has that not knowing piece been for you, and like impact on your mental health and just kind of your, functioning overall? If one of you wants to say, I know Kristen.
Kristen can definitely take this one. I've spoken a lot recently, so Kristen can definitely take this one. Yeah.
I think, along with everybody else, it's the unknown is scary. So for it not to affect your mental health, and especially for me, it was my child. I'm supposed to be, as the mom, the one that finds the answers and fixes it, makes it better. And yes, you can still play football and you can still play soccer, and we're going to get through this. So it took, I can say, a big hit on my mental health, and not just mine, but those in my inner circle that were close and helping me. It is time consuming to uphold a job and to raise a family alone, but you throw an undiagnosed disease in there where you're having to call physicians, call these places to get medical records and connect the dots where maybe the dots weren't connected. But you have to do it to advocate. So yes, mental health is a big thing, I think, that we don't discuss with the undiagnosed population, and it really is something that affects everybody that's involved.
Yeah. And so I'm curious, like, for my own family, we went to the UDN in 2017. So my daughter was 9 when we arrived. And I remember when I first heard about the UDN, it was like a beacon, a beacon in the night when it just felt like things were so hopeless. And so, what has the UDN meant to you, in your journeys? I know the journeys have been quite different. Olivia, what was it like for your family? In 2014, you would have been what? Like,
I think I was 20. Yeah.
Okay. But you were an adult already, pretty much.
Yeah.
But what was that like for you to find the UDN?
I hate to burst anyone's bubble, but I think it, with our family's mentality, I gravitated towards that, in the same that it was lovely and it was nice and we were hopeful, but I think we had a similar mentality throughout this whole time, and still do, where it would be nice to have a diagnosis at this time, but after 29 years or 20 years, whatever it is, it's more of for us at least, it was something I've said before, which is a treatment plan, prediction. What is this disease going to look like, the future? For me, what, people have foundations, huge foundations and research behind them to cure cancers or CF or whatever it may be. And you can almost predict now what the life progression might be for these individuals, because although they're rare, CF at least is rare, it still affects thousands of people. For me, and as we know the journey, it's one of 7 billion or 2 of 7 billion or 8, whatever the population is now. So I guess to answer your question, it would just be very helpful to have a diagnosis just for us, I think, yes, mentally, but also to help if something were to arise, predicting what could happen in the future, to answer your question. Yeah.
Well, right.
That would really help.
And what I've told
You don't
people,
have that,
without a
so.
diagnosis, you can't get treatment, right?
Exactly.
And so, I mean, you can get treatment for individual symptoms, but
Yeah.
not for the trajectory of whatever illness it is. So that's,
yeah.
So that's really why diagnosis is so important.
Oh, exactly. Yeah, you definitely know.
Yeah. And what about you, Kristen? How is the UDN different or set itself apart, or did it set itself apart from your other experiences?
Say that for the first time, I felt like I belonged somewhere. So it was, of course, hope. I knew that I wasn't alone. There were other people, maybe not with the same symptoms, but were along the same journey with me. So I saw it as being this huge, supportive, interested, and available medical team that really wanted to focus on Cooper and really wish the best for him. So mine was kind of like yours, like, to the point that like my mom packed a bag and came on the trip with us to Duke, and she lived in Louisiana at the time. So I still cry when I think about I actually got it because I was working through like an email format that he had gotten accepted, and it still gives me chills. And I think it's due to the fact that I finally fit in somewhere that I had longed for so long.
I mean, I just like resonates with me. I remember too when we were accepted, and I remember when I applied and you call the DMCC, the coordinating center, and asking questions, and just, I mean, for us, just praying that we got in, because there were no other answers anywhere else. And so, I mean, you kind of both spoke to, just belonging to a group, right? I mean, as I know as a parent of a kid who has kind of multiple different things going on, I would join groups. I'm like, well, her symptoms kind of fit this. She doesn't have this, but I'm going to join this group because at least there's parts of her that, that I can identify with. And so, now that the foundation is here, I guess, what are your, hopes about or visions about this idea of belonging that maybe weren't possible 5 years ago or 10 years ago, or the UDN was like the seedling to that belonging? I don't know, Kristen, what do you think?
So I call it home. It feels right. It feels like home. It's a place of community where we can all kind of reflect off each other's experiences and share, and also obtain resources. So that's what I see moving forward with it, and how the UDN and the foundation and everything's growing. It's home.
And what about you? What kinds of resources, maybe, Olivia, do you feel like in retrospect you didn't have that the UDNF or maybe even resources that you found today have given you?
Yeah, so I mean, listening to everyone's story, like especially Kristen's and yours, Sarah, I feel kind of weird because we were fortunate enough to find community wherever we went, whether that's in England, the East Coast, Bay Area. We live in the Napa Valley now, so I unfortunately didn't feel too alone. But of course, to speak to what you guys were saying, no, we didn't have anybody with the exact same journey as us, and that was kind of odd. But I do feel very fortunate that we had a lovely community wherever we went of friends and family, and we made our own family. So that was really nice. But as for what it could bring and what it could have brought if we had it, is I think the mental and physical strain of advocating. Not that my parents wouldn't have done it, and they did do it. They wouldn't have maybe had to fight so hard that they did, and all that strength and all the, that it took for them to do it. Of course they would do it as my parents, and did do it, but it just, having all the resources, as you guys were saying, that the UDNF is going to bring, and the UDN can bring, and all that, I just think it would have eased a lot of strain that they had in my infancy, in early childhood and teenagehood, thinking about IEPs that they had to advocate for, treatment they had to advocate for without a diagnosis. And then I'm thinking into my adulthood of SSI and SSDI and IHSS, if you guys know what those government supports are, things I didn't even know about and were completely available to me and my family at such a young age, but we didn't know about them. So, and I bet there's tons of resources that I can't even, fathom, can't even think about, because they're just so unknown to me, because we didn't have this home, as you guys would put it, so this community. So I'm thankful that we have it now, and that also doubly fortunate that people have it now, that individuals have it now. I'm so grateful.
And, I kind of wanted to I know a little bit about you, Kristen, just from talking to you in the past. And I know you've gone from a more urban area to a more rural area. And I'm just thinking about, as we build this community, and what that means, what that means for people, that it may be even harder to find community because they live in rural areas. And you've talked to me a little bit about the differences between the two. And I'm just wondering if you can talk about that, because I think it's really important. I think it's fascinating. And I also think it's really important.
Yeah, definitely. So spent 18 years in North Carolina, not even 10 minutes from a level 1 trauma center, pediatric hospital. Had every specialist, everything I needed right at my hands. And if they didn't know about a resource, then they would, they had case managers that connected everything together, or they would reach out and work collaboratively with the UDN at the Duke site. Like the communication was always on point. Moving now to a rural area in Louisiana, I found myself as the case manager, being the one between the two, with Cooper being new to these specialists. How do I get his old records? And I'm the one doing it now, versus having all those resources that were there. Or a lot of times I'll walk into his pediatrician now and they're like, okay, what do you need? Just tell us what to do. But that's a lot more stress on my plate that I didn't have in a rural area where they were communicating with the UDN real good. So I'd say that's the biggest challenge, and that's not any fault of theirs. They just haven't been exposed to it. There's a lack of knowledge that the UDN and UDNF actually are available. So therefore, I think the biggest challenge is just the lack of knowledge, and not on physician side, but lack of knowledge of who the UDN is and what they can do, and why is your son part of this, and getting everybody back up to date so that that connection can be rebuilt between the teammates.
Well, and I think it's kind of speaks to two things, both the UDN and the UDNF, and kind of that collaboration. But the UDN, as it kind of moves into its next phase of work, really wants to spread the resource that is the UDN into more corners of the United States, and increase access for participants, for patients, and that there'll be more of an opportunity for kind of a telehealth for people that can't travel, or maybe it's just not the best best choice or the most appropriate to travel to a site, but to offer kind of some telehealth or some consulting type of resources for families, whether you live in urban America or rural America or somewhere in between. And I think kind of moving into some of the resources that the foundation, plans to offer, will be launching here in 2024, is the patient navigation program that hopes to, connect families and even more, and help families feel connected. So if we want to move into patient navigation, Michelle is our new director of the patient navigation program, and she has lots of exciting news to tell you. So, and I also want to say, I didn't say in the beginning, if you have questions for anyone today, Olivia, Kristen, myself, Michelle, Amy, please put them in the chat and we will try to get to those questions today at the end. So with that, I'll hand it over to Michelle.
Thank you, Sarah. I did notice a couple people introducing themselves in the chat. If you haven't done that yet and you'd like to let us know why you're here and what brought you to our webinar today, we'd love to just see your introduction there. I am Michelle. I'm the director for patient navigation at the UDNF, and I'm so excited to be here with you today. We have an exciting pilot launching early next year. We're going to pilot the Patient Navigator program at 5 of the Undiagnosed Diseases Network sites. So there are sites all over the United States, as you may or may not be aware of, and 5 of the sites indicated interest in participating, and they are Baylor in Houston, Duke, University of Miami, Stanford, and Washington University in St. Louis. How the pilot program is going to work is that new applicants to those sites will be assigned to a navigator. We want to offer navigation services to as many people as we can. However, we have to be able to do this pilot, get it done successfully, learn from our experiences, grow, change, and we really want to just make the pilot as robust as it can be and make our program as good as it can be before we expand too quickly. So our intention is to expand to more of the UDN sites and ultimately offer navigation services to undiagnosed and ultra rare patients and caregivers who are not participating in the UDN. So we want to expand and grow, and we know that's going to happen. We also intend to hold some in-person meetings at some of these locations. So if you live in any of the cities that I mentioned, we may be coming to you live and doing some community engagement and introducing the UDNF and the UDN to those of you in those areas. We can go to the next slide. I'm very excited to introduce you to our navigators that we've hired. As I said, I'm the program director. I have a background in pediatric nursing, just like Kristen, who you heard earlier, and she's one of our new navigators. So I'm so excited she got to share her experience with her son and the UDN with you. In addition, on our meeting today, we have Dana, and we also have Jennifer. Jennifer starts later next year. Dana and Kristen both started this month. In addition, we have Ronisha and Mary, who are starting in January as well. So just a really great team with a lot of experience in care navigation and patient advocacy. And I just think that they're going to be such a service to the community. So very, very excited. Next slide. Speaking of community, we are excited today to launch our new UDNF Undiagnosed and Ultra Rare Facebook group. This group, the title is UDNF, a group for undiagnosed and ultra rare community. You can go there right now. You can use this QR code and it will take you to that Facebook group. There is already a group for those of you who are in the UDN that's run by UDN Peer. That group is staying the same as it always has. This is an additional group because we want to be inclusive of all undiagnosed and ultra rare, even if they are not participating in the UDN. So please go there. Let's get this community started. Let's support each other. Feel free to ask questions if you have anything in the chat. The moderators of this group will be your patient navigators, and we look forward to meeting you there. Thanks, Amy. I think that you are next.
Thank you, Michelle. Right. See, we're having some technical issues. Here we go with the slides. All right. It's so nice to meet everyone. My name is Amy Gray, and I'm the Chief Executive Officer of the Undiagnosed Diseases Network Foundation. Until earlier this year, there was no single nonprofit organization that was solely dedicated to the undiagnosed ultra-rare disease community here in the US. Like we see in many different disease areas like Parkinson's disease, there are great organizations such as the Parkinson Foundation or the Michael J. Fox Foundation for research. In muscular dystrophy, we see organizations like the Muscular Dystrophy Association and disease-specific organizations around specific neuromuscular diseases. We see this in epilepsy and autism and every other disease, including rare and ultra-rare diseases, but there has been no single organization focused on the undiagnosed and ultra-rare community until February 28th, 2023, when our foundation was incorporated and launched. So the UDNF intends to serve the community as that organization to improve access to diagnosis, research, and care for everyone living with undiagnosed and ultra-rare conditions, and really helping bridge that gap between diagnosis and the diagnostic odyssey and therapy and the therapeutic discovery efforts that are needed upon a diagnosis, as well as research and really bridging the support needed between research that's being conducted into understanding undiagnosed and ultra-rare diseases and clinical care. And so we look forward to being that organization and being there every step of the way to help patients and families navigate their journey. Now, a year ago, our organization or the people involved with launching our organization brought a number of members of the community together to have some conversations around the needs of the undiagnosed and ultra-rare disease community. And not only did those community members speak about the need to have a patient-led organization that would help, that would get formed and help ensure the sustainability of the Undiagnosed Diseases Network, but a lot of conversations centered around the broader needs and the gaps in those needs and the gaps in care, the gaps in research, the gaps in treatment, topics that have all come up today for the broader undiagnosed and ultra-rare disease community. And so it was really through those discussions and then subsequent discussions that have happened over the last year with a very diverse group of stakeholders from around the country and internationally that our strategic plan was formed. And it was formed around these 4 pillars that you see on the screen today: sustainability and growth, both of the Undiagnosed Diseases Network, which we think is a national treasure, and we want to grow and expand that and have that serve more people in the community, but also of our foundation, so we can support the broader community through a number of efforts. Patient and family navigation, we want to be there with patients and families every step of the way, providing support and resources, and really being that home that was spoken about today, and forming that community for this community where it's so needed. And then thinking about ways in which we can fund and accelerate and innovate when it comes to research, and not just research, but patient-centered research, where patients and families are at the center of the research strategy, and where we're bridging that work that's being done in research and clinical care, and the care that's needed to help manage symptoms and understand the needs of the family on a clinical standpoint. So the 4 pillars of our strategic plan and of our mission, and what we are really excited to do is to share with you today some of the projects and initiatives that we will be launching in 2024 and ways in which you can get involved. In terms of sustainability, we've launched a campaign called Making Diagnosis, Research, and Treatments Possible for All. This is a way for you to plug in and get involved, share your story, help us create awareness about the work of the Undiagnosed Diseases Network, about the needs of the undiagnosed and ultra-rare disease community, and help fundraise around access to diagnosis, research, and treatments so we can make them possible for everyone. We also need support and help, volunteer help and volunteer support to advocate for funding for the Undiagnosed Diseases Network through appropriations funding. And we have plans to launch some efforts in this area, including a letter writing campaign that you can get involved with in 2024. In terms of patient and family navigation, you've heard today about the Patient Navigator program that we'll be launching and that one-on-one support that we'll be providing to a handful of sites within the UDN, and then expanding that in the years ahead. And as our navigators work with the participants that are enrolled in this pilot program, they will be developing resources, and we will then take and post those resources online and sharing those more broadly with the community through our website, as well as through monthly webinars, which Sarah spoke about earlier today. So please, if you have not filled out the poll yet on what topic you'd like us to address in February, please do so. We really want to take our cue from the community and hear from you what those needs are and help meet those needs through our navigation program, as well as through our community engagement efforts. We're excited to be able to host and launch some activities for Awareness Days in 2024. We are looking to do something for Ultra Rare Disease Day, so stay tuned for that, as well as for Undiagnosed Day, which is April 29th. And we will also be hosting, as Michelle mentioned, some in-person education and community gathering events connected to some of the sites that will be participating in our Navigator program. Those events will be open to the public, and we look forward to bringing researchers in, clinicians in, community members and community stakeholders in to really start building this community and offering resources, support, and that home that was spoken about, as well as the online group that Michelle mentioned that we are launching today. We encourage you to get involved with that online group, as we know that that's also a place that people like to connect. In terms of patient-centered research and clinical care, we want to continue to grow and expand access to the Undiagnosed Diseases Network, and we'll be putting some programs in place to reach underserved communities, marginalized communities, as well as rural communities, and then working with the Undiagnosed Diseases Network on a tiered approach and incorporating some new technologies into their diagnostic capabilities. All of this will be integrated with our navigation program, so patients and families have support every step of the way from the time they're applying to the UDN and beyond. And for those that remain undiagnosed, we plan to launch some efforts around a special diagnosis cohort. So stay tuned for that. We have an exciting announcement we'll be making in 2024 on that effort, as well as a therapy matching initiative. So upon a diagnosis, we want to help families navigate that next step of the journey, working with them to create a research roadmap and help fast track them to therapy development. And we are hiring someone in to help us launch this effort in January. So we encourage you to join our community and not just get involved by joining our community, but get involved and help us build this community for the undiagnosed and ultra-rare disease community. Sign up to volunteer or to receive our e-news so you can hear about opportunities that are going to be happening online or in communities in your area. Consider joining our campaign, Making Diagnosis, Research, and Care Possible for All, by sharing your story or fundraising or making a donation, and get involved and follow us online or on Facebook. So we encourage you to get involved. We extend that invitation to you, and we recognize that individuals within the community have many talents to offer, and we have many people that have already raised their hand to volunteer their time and efforts. So we encourage, that kind of participation as well. Thank you so much for joining us today. We hope to see you all at our February 6th event. I don't know if we have any questions in the chat here. It doesn't look like we do. We will be sending out an email after the event today with a registration link to also register for the February 6th event. So we hope to see you there. And that concludes the event we have for you today. Thank you again.